key staple of the high school education experience is American history, but my experience was a little bit different. Not only did I learn American history, but I developed a pretty extensive knowledge of French naval history as well. I spent much of my childhood listening to stories about my ancestor, Jacques Cassard, the French naval captain, learning a lot about his endeavors. After hearing plenty of family stories about the amazing Jacques and doing much of my own research over the last 10 years or so, I've developed a pretty vast knowledge. Today I'll be reviewing one of my family's favorite stories about my ancestor, as well as how these stories have shaped my family and I. When I was young, I loved when my father would tell us about the seizing of Fort Amsterdam. Captain Jacques Cassard was commanding a French fleet to enter the harbor of Williamstead on Dutch Curaçao in order to seize the fort. The Dutch had left the fort greatly unmanned because they underestimated the abilities of the French after their loss in the War of Spanish Succession. After infiltrating the fort, Jacques and his fleet demanded the immediate surrender of Curaçao and held a ransom of 400,000 ducats to spare the city of Williamstead from bombardment and looting. I always found this story fascinating because it reminded childhood me of pirates. When my father would tell my brother and I about the story as children, he always made sure to really play it up and making our distant relative into a pirate captain who was conquering for France. The story played a huge part in jump-starting my brother and I's interest in historical events and especially in pirates. This story is one that's been constantly told within my family, meaning that I've heard at least 50 different renditions of this story alone. It was always adjusted for who the audience was, but continued with the same original outline. For the young ones in my family, the story is often told with Jacques as a pirate captain coming in and conquering for France. When my father tells the story around the dinner table with my cousins, it is much more refined, with Jacques as a decorated naval officer taking the fort in the name of the French government. The story had a huge effect on my family, especially my brother and I. We both became hugely interested in pirates and naval ships as kids, religiously watching the Pirates of the Caribbean and constantly playing pretend pirates. As we grew up and learned more about our family history, the fascination adjusted from the pirate fantasy to the history of our relative. Now that you all know the story of my French naval officer relative, I hope that you can all see how and why this story has been passed down from generation to generation, sparking the historical interest in not just me and my brother, but our niece and nephew now as well. The story has brought us all together, giving us something to grab onto in our family history. Although my knowledge of French naval history is now pretty extensive, it is mostly centered around my relative, the French naval officer and possible pirate, Jacques Cassard, and my family's constant retelling of his life stories. Thank you.